Over the course of the last 3 years, I've spent hundreds of hours building mechanical LEGO Minecraft models, fixing LEGO Minecraft sets, and even building a $1,000 LEGO Minecraft build. And this video contains it all, starting with the almost life-size LEGO Minecraft blocks. LEGO is like Minecraft Hardcore. Make one wrong step and you're gone for good. Which means LEGO Technic is like Minecraft Redstone. Ooh, I should build a life-size Minecraft Piston out of LEGO. By the way, this became one of my biggest and heaviest builds ever, so do stick around till the end. This is a minifigure sized Minecraft Piston. It's boring, looks bad, and doesn't even work. Let's scale it up a little. Minecraft block is 16 by 16 by 16 pixels, and we can make a perfect Lego square by stacking a plate and a tile on a 2x2 brick. So if I take this 32 by 32 base plate, it's actually the perfect size to make a life-size Minecraft block. Wait. Oh. Well, I'm gonna pretend it's life-size anyways. Unfortunately, because this part of the piston block moves at the bottom, I can't use this base plate because it would look weird if part of the base plate was sticking out when the piston was extended. So instead, I'm gonna make a 32 by 24 base for the cobblestone part of the piston. I'm using this piston in the game as a reference for my build, and I just realized all the plates I just laid down need to be black. So, let's fix that. Okay, so now I need to build 4 tall pillars about 26.6 bricks high. I'm gonna have to use a lot of black bricks and plates. I started by building a bunch of black pixels for each corner with these 2x2 bricks and plates, and of course I've run out, so I switched to using 1x2 bricks and plates to make even more pixels. Then I ran out of those too, so I calculated how much more for each pillar I needed and only finished 2. Thankfully, I decided to line up 1 to make sure it was the right height, but it was way too long. Not sure what type of math I was using to calculate that, but I still have a long way to go, so I don't have time to mourn the lost brain cells. Next, I need to build 3 walls on the outside of the piston. I'm gonna use gray and dark gray pieces, even though there's like a cajillion different colors in the actual cobblestone texture, but LEGO doesn't exactly have all those colors. The first layer may have taken like 3 tries to work out because I kept forgetting how many pixels each block is, but I eventually figured it out. Then I started building up the wall. But there was a sinking feeling because deep down I knew I didn't have close to enough parts to finish all the walls. And you know what else I probably don't have enough of? Views on this video, because if this video gets 1 million views, I'm gonna buy a Lambo. Yes, it's made out of Lego, and yes, it's like 10,000 times cheaper than a real Lambo, but it's still a Lambo, so make sure you like and stay all the way to the end of the video. But I still have to somehow fill in 3 walls of the piston, so I hopped into creative mode and went into Bricklink, a Lego buying and selling marketplace, to order a bunch of gray and dark gray pieces. I ordered some 2x6, 2x4, and 2x2 bricks and plates in dark gray and normal gray. But with my off-camera mining session complete, I now had to wait a whole whopping 5 days for my Lego to come. Man, I could use some instant gratification right now. But that's okay because I still have an entire moving part of the piston to build. I started by laying out a layer of 4 stud-wide plates and started adding some dark tan bricks. Then I realized I definitely don't have enough dark tan to make an entire piston, so yeah. So because I don't have enough dark tan bricks, I'm going to use my big brain and utilize my large amount of dark 2x2 tan tiles. If I use these snot bricks with a brick and a plate and a tile, it's the exact same thickness as 3 studs. So for every dark line in the front of the piston, I can just add a layer of these tiles. I slowly built up the front of the piston and used the same technique for all the sides. I also made sure to add these gray bits in the corners of the piston, and somehow miraculously everything started lining up. Okay, so I'm almost finished with the front of the piston, but we need to cover up the top. I built the same sideways technique that I used for the rest of the dark lines, but the pieces used to hook them in stick up too high and aren't dark tan, so I'm gonna have to use normal pieces for this part. I don't think I have enough tan tiles. We're gonna have to resort to using 1x2 tiles to cover the rest up. And that's done. I think it looks really good, but now we need to build the actual piston beam part of the build, but that shouldn't be too difficult. I got out a bunch of tan bricks and used plates to form a base for the piston. To make sure it was stable and so the front wouldn't rip off the front of the piston, I locked in the beam with a bunch of pieces. So I need to cover the beam in some sort of tiles, and it would make sense if they were tan, but I basically have no tan left, so I think I'm going to use gray. Plus, the gear racks I'm using will be gray as well, and speaking of gear racks, it's time I figured out how exactly to check off the working part of this build. Originally, I was going to motorize the piston and activate it by turning on the battery box, but my friend Brick Science suggested that instead I should put the lever on top of the piston and make it manually open and close. If I hook the lever to an axle that is connected to a gear, I can use the gear ratio to make the ending gear turn much faster than the one connected to the handle. This way, while I'm only turning one level a fraction of a rotation, the gear at the end spins multiple times, pushing the piston all the way out. Or at least, that's the general idea. I was planning to have a lever this whole time, but having it on the top is going to make it so much easier. Alrighty, now that the wooden part of the piston is finished, I can build a platform inside the cobblestone part that the piston can slide in and out on. This was simple enough, but I was starting to have second thoughts because it's getting really heavy. Just the piston alone weighs a lot, and I'm not sure the gears will be able to push it, but there's only one way to find out. Okay, here's my attempt 1. It's getting there, but I still think it could spin faster so that the piston extends further, so we need to gear it up even more. I added another layer of gears and tested it out. Okay, so I think it's fast enough, so I'm going to try using it on the axle piston. Since I don't have an easy way to secure the lever to the piston, I just decided to hold it in place. I turned it, and that certainly leaves a lot to be desired. I was pretty sure I had just bent the axle because the piston is literally so heavy it coils the axle before being turned. After multiple attempts, I was just realizing how heavy the piston actually was. So with that in mind, I decided to resort back to using motors. I got out my strongest and slowest motor, put a gear on it, and turned it on. So it actually pushes the piston, sorta, but to lock the motor sturdily would take so much structure it isn't worth it. I decided to put the piston on wheels. That might sound crazy, but I have these small wheels that would fit on the bottom, and if I just raise up the base of the cobblestone part, it will hopefully work much better. Okay. Perfect, but now it looks weird, so we're gonna have to build an entire grass base for the piston. This is gonna be big. I went with a 48 by 48 base plate because it fits perfectly with the piston and gives enough room around the sides to look like a grass block. Okay, now we need to add a layer of brown bricks and then a bunch of plates. I also added 2 rows of smooth brown tiles so that the wheels would still roll smoothly. And finally, after hours of work, yeah, I still have a lot to do. I was still waiting for my package to arrive, so I decided to finish up the wall that I started while I waited for them to come. I barely had enough parts and had to cut some corners, but with that, the wall was finished. I got to work building up the walls. Man, I need a bigger desk. Please subscribe. I definitely underordered the pieces, but I used my big brain to cut some corners again, but after another hour of work, all 3 walls were finished. And with that all done, it was finally ready for mechanism time. Even though the wheels making it roll a lot easier, I decided to not use motors and gears and go for a simpler, more effective route. I built a small contraption at the top of the piston that could hold the lever in place while still allowing it to go up and down and tilt to either side. Then I made the actual lever longer so it could reach down and connect into the piston beam. I took off the gear X and made a platform to hook the lever onto. And wait, it actually works. Good thing I didn't waste a couple hours trying a way more complicated method. I finished up the top of the model by creating the same cobbled pattern with a bunch of 2x2 gray and dark gray tiles and built up the base of the lever. Even though the actual in-game lever is 3 pixels tall, I could only make mine 1, otherwise the lever would not have enough room to tilt open and close. Okay, now we need to change the color of the level because for some reason I thought it should be gray, not brown. And finally, we need to add a wall of gray bricks behind the piston to close it all up. And now it's officially done. I just made a working life-size lever-activated Minecraft piston and it looks so sick. Plus, like, it works. And after building that massive Minecraft piston, I set my sights on building a large-scale Minecraft minecart. Minecraft has minecarts, and LEGO makes trains, and if we combine them, well, you'll see. If I use gear racks on this track and then make the wheels of the minecart gears, it should make the minecart run along the track like it does in game. First up, we're going to need some rails. A Minecraft block is 16 pixels on every side, so I'm going to make each LEGO stud a pixel. With the dimensions established, it would make sense if I use a bunch of these 2x16 plates as each tie on the rail, and then add some more plates running in the opposite direction for the minecart to run along. That's a great start, but for this to look like it does in the game, I'm going to need to make each tie brown. But I already used most of my dark tan tiles on my piston. Alright, now that I have acquired the right pieces, I can start adding them to the ties and make them the right color. I had to destroy my piston even more to get the right amount, but with the inside of the tracks done, I now need to add some 1x2 tiles on each of the tie. And with that, the brown look is complete, but in order for the minecart to run along the tracks, it's going to need something a little better than random studs. So my plan is to use these gear racks along a trail, and then make the tires of the minecart these gears so that when the minecart gets powered, it has traction and runs along the track. I only had enough pieces to make 5 16x16 tracks, but it should be enough to run the minecart. Now I need to make the rails better for the minecart. The only problem is that I don't think I'm going to have enough of these gear racks for both sides of the track. But I think that the dipped part of each gear rack is the same height as the tile, so if I space each gear rack out by 2 studs and alternate each side so that any given point on each side of the cart is engaged in a gear, it should be able to always push itself forward. But that's if I even have enough gear racks to do that. So I was hoping to not need this black one, but naturally I happen to be exactly 1 gear short, so just ignore the ugliness. Then I realized that I put an entire row on the wrong side of the rail, so let's fix that. With that done, I also need to add a higher up section on the rail to make sure the minecart stays on track. So if I use these long plates and tiles, I can make a sort of small barrier to stop it from running off. And speaking of barriers, there isn't one between you and the subscribe button, so you should click it. Anyways, now that the rails are done, I need to make some sort of base to go underneath them. I have plans to make it a lush cave over the middle with 2 different biomes on either side. It doesn't make sense, but you'll see. I started building that, but quickly realized I probably don't have enough pieces, and it probably wouldn't look good anyways. I tried propping up base plates on their sides for a platform to build off of, but it was already looking bad, so I scrapped the idea and went with something that would be much simpler. I decided that instead of the more complex lush cave, I would just build blocks underneath the minecart. And since they were already gray and green plates beneath the rails, I went with grass and stone blocks. So I added a bunch of plant pieces, basically all the ones off my piston, and added a bunch of spread out 1x2 tiles in dark gray and light gray on the stone side to mimic the stone texture. And now that that's finished, I have a really good looking minecart track without a minecart, which means now it's time to build the working minecart. Because it's not going to be very heavy, I'm going to use my smallest motor. I made a small frame and put the gears on as the wheels. Okay, so it runs, but I want to make it way cooler than that. I want there to be mineshaft pillars on either side of the track, so that when the minecart hits each one, it can reverse, so it's basically an infinite loop. This battery box has a switch that can slide in 2 directions, so if it's flipped the opposite way, it will reverse the motor. I think if I use this to my advantage, I can make a sort of button that when the minecart runs into something, it pushes itself enough to switch directions and start moving the other way. I built up the mechanics and luckily found that the height of the small motor with this pinhole is perfect to have these 2 gears line up. And with the small gear on top, it makes the perfect ratio so that the minecart doesn't roll too fast or too slow. But it looks like a frame and a motor, not a minecart, so I need to make it look a lot better. I started by building some walls all around the sides with these bracket pieces and then added some plates of the right size to make the walls. But before I go on, I need to figure out how to fit the battery box. I tried every thinkable direction. Upright, sideways and upside down, backwards, but nothing would work. Then I had an actually pretty good idea. I know, the next Albert Einstein. Because the only way to sort of fit the battery box is to have it upright, if I make it a furnace minecart, then it would have room inside the furnace for the battery box. Plus, I could fit into the fact that the minecart is running on its own. Now that I fit everything inside the minecart, I can test it. Okay, so it kinda works, but the motor doesn't have enough grip to stay in place after a couple reverses. Every time the motor changes direction, it means the gears have to reverse almost instantly, and the motor, which is only secured by 4 studs, can't hold on for very long. Then I built this little platform thing on top that was supposed to hold it in place, but that didn't really work either. Okay, while I'm putting off actually making the mechanics work, I'm gonna make the sides of the minecart actually look like the in-game texture. I used a bunch of 1x1 flat tiles in dark gray to make the texture the game has, but after just 1.5 sides I ran out, so I resorted to using 1x1 plates with the studs, and barely finished 3 of the sides. At this point I clearly did not have enough for the 4th side, so I just left it blank, because it would be the side facing the back anyways. Then I filled it with light gray tiles. But with that done, there was no more time to push it off. It was mechanism time. I came to the realization that I was going to have to use a different motor, a different size motor altogether. Can't think of any problems that would occur because of that? Well, think again. Because the motor is larger, I have to figure out a new way to hook it in. And it sticks out one stud more than the smaller motor, which means the battery box no longer fits in the spot I fit earlier. And since the motor is thicker, the same beautiful, simple, elegant gear ratio that worked so well before no longer fits. And since the gear ratio doesn't fit, I have to use a slightly bigger gear on top. It makes the minecart go way too fast. Oh, and did I mention that the gear and spacers on the driver axle all have to be rearranged as well? Alrighty, now that I have a couple simple problems to fix, let's begin this fun, enjoyable task. I figured out that I can stick the battery box on its side like this, and then use these Technic pins with studs on one end as a way to clip it in. Then, if I use these pieces, I can hook the motor down in the minecart in a much sturdier way than using studs. And with the motor in place, I can clip the battery box into these pieces. Now that's most of the problems pretty much solved, except for one. It's way too fast. I tried using the smallest gear, but it wouldn't line up with any other gear I have, so next I tried using rubber bands on these wheels as a way to not have to worry about the gears lining up, and just have a tighter rubber band bridging the gap. It works, but it isn't powerful enough to reverse itself, barely pushing the switch off enough to stop itself. I tried a tighter rubber band, but that didn't work either. Then I just decided to keep it fast. The gears lined up so well, and I clearly wasn't going to be able to replicate it easily. But I still need to build the furnace part of the minecart, so I got to work. I started by using these Technic half beams and pins and built an outline for where the furnace would go. Then, by using these Technic pins, I made a platform and started building up the furnace. I basically copied what I did from my piston, just on a smaller scale. I used gray and dark gray to make the cobblestone texture, and then black in the corners. I also added an opening part using black, and with that done, all I had to do was make the reversing mechanism. Simply by sticking this Technic beam on the battery box so that it can be hit and reversed, then I added the top out of the furnace and started tiling it. So I need one more 1x1 gray tile, but I'm completely out. This should satisfy anyone with OCD. But with that done, I just made a fully working Minecraft minecart. But this is a very short track, so I got out even more of my plates and started making a really long track. It's not the right colors because I ran out of pieces and I didn't worry about the ground or the rails or like anything. All I focused on was just making 2 tracks for the minecart to run along. Man, that's cool. 100k likes and I'll make a track that runs all over my room. I'll even figure out how to make it turn corners, do everything. Subscribe. That was a super fun project. And to continue the momentum, I built a working LEGO Minecraft dispenser, which shot arrows. I already established that LEGO is like Minecraft when I built my working piston. Ooh, but what if I made a working dispenser? By the way, this build ended up being super complicated and cool, so make sure you stick around to the end. I found out before that giant redstone Minecraft blocks makes for really cool LEGO builds, so I can use that same plan to build a dispenser and then build a button on top that activates it. I want to use the same technique as I did with the piston and use a bunch of black pieces around the edges to copy the look of the in-game dispenser. But in order to do that, with the 2x2 bricks, I'm going to need over 100, and I definitely don't have that many, so I had to get creative. I used a combination of tall panels, plates, and bricks, and eventually got them high enough. Okay, now that we have the frame in place, I need to start filling out the walls. Luckily, I have all the plates and bricks left over from when I built my piston, so I shouldn't have to order any extra. And yes, the piston has been destroyed for months. It's actually really nice because instead of a ton of detail on every inch of the block like the piston, over 1/3 of it is just entirely light gray pieces. Once I laid down the layer of gray on 3 of the sides, I started working on the cobblestone texture of the top half of the block. The main problem is that the lightest gray on the top of the dispenser is darker than the bottom part, but I only have 2 gray colors to choose from, so I don't have much contrast. I also started using white as a highlight and put a strip down between the 2 sections. The white also came in handy for the face of the piston, but I don't need to think about that yet. I slowly built up the sides of the dispenser and realized that every side is actually the exact same texture. So I built all 3 walls at the same time, which saved me a ton of boredom. Okay, now that the back and side walls are done, I can work on the front, which has a lot more detail. For the light parts, I added out white outlines such as around the mouth, eyes, and shape of the face thing. Underneath the white, I put light gray, and above it, I added the same cobblestone texture that the rest of the sides have. Once all the textures were done, I added a 1 pixel thick layer of black around the top, and with that done, it's mechanism time. Here we go. When I first started building this, I was going to use a button to activate the dispenser that presses down on one of these. It's one of LEGO's spring-loaded shooters, and I'm going to use it as some sort of tipped arrow. Disclaimer, I ended up finishing this, but it felt really underwhelming by how it turned out, and made something better. But I'm still going to give you a quick and brief summary of how I built it, because the mechanism is still what I used in the finished model, and it just helps it make sense. Basically, there are these rubber bands inside the hook to this button, which I built using the same cobbled texture as the dispenser. It has a long Technic beam assembly below it with these weird ball pin pieces that hold onto the rubber bands, and then it has this holder that fits around the beams and connects to the actual dispenser. Then I made a black box, put the 1x4 launcher piece in the center of it, and set it back a couple pixels from the mouth. Then I made the top of the dispenser by using a bunch of 2x2 tiles in both grays to make it the right texture. I also added a bunch of supports to hold it up, and then tested it. Okay, let's see what my friend thinks. Okay, it's time to make this better, and way more complicated. Here we go. First off, I want to dispense an arrow when the button is pressed, so I need to build an arrow. It's not going to be as long as the in-game one because it wouldn't fit inside the dispenser, and unlike Minecraft, I can't just change the scale to suit each application. I still wanted to have that pixelated look, so I went with diagonal building technique that makes the sides look like the jagged in-game texture. I also added a gray tip and these white feathers at the end. Alrighty, with that part done, I can move on to the super easy part of making everything work consistently. Like I said, super easy. First off, I need to add rubber bands to the mouth of the dispenser so that it launches the arrow. It took way too many tries, but I eventually got this design, and it has an adequately sized hole for the arrow, as well as 2 rubber bands hooked in place that fit perfectly in the feather part of the arrow. When I pull the black box in place and secured it into the mouth of the dispenser, I can pull the arrow back and it will launch. Okay, now that that's finished, I need to make some way to hold the arrow in place when the pulled back position so that it only shoots when the button is pressed and not as soon as it's loaded. I need something that basically works as one of these binder clips. Obviously, the real thing is way too hard to press and would just bend or snap anything made of Lego trying to open it, so I need to make a Lego version. If I use these L-shaped Technic beams with larger beams connected behind them, and then use the same small ball pins and hook rubber bands to it, it makes a clip that when pushed down on the back opens up. Also, this video doesn't have a sponsor, but I do have channel memberships, and every single dollar that I make from there goes back into buying pieces to make my videos better. So if you're interested, the button's down below. Then I built a simple structure to hold it in place, which for some reason to me looks like a creature. But maybe it's just me, I don't know, comment if you see what I mean. Now that the locking mechanism in place, I need to make the button a lot different. The top of it will work out, but because the clamp has to be opened from a Technic beam at the back, just having a straight beam below the button won't work. At first, I tried using angled Technic beams to shift the force of pushing down on the button to the back of the dispenser, but there was too much flex and it wouldn't hold. Then I decided to use a completely opposite technique and use only normal bricks. I basically made a not very sturdy beam thing underneath the button that slowly branches behind it to hit the beam and make the clamp open. All you need to know is that the rubber bands were not strong enough to pull it back up once pressed, and that instead of pressing down on the button, it would start tilting backwards, which isn't exactly what I was trying to do. I decided that I needed to make the whole button weigh less, so I started by taking away all the large bricks underneath it and using a mix of Technic and normal bricks. This way the connection at the top could be strengthened, but the space in between wouldn't require as many pieces, therefore being lighter. I added a line of bricks at the bottom so that it would be stronger when hitting the back of the clamp. Okay, testing time. I didn't have any rubber bands on it yet, but I just wanted to see if it would actually press down the clamp and release the arrow. I put the arrow in, pulled the button up, pushed it, and yeah. So I thought it was basically done. See that thumbs up? That is coming from a naive, ignorant, okay, maybe not, but I really didn't know how much more was in store for me. It might look easy just watching these videos, but these builds are pretty complicated, especially since I can't even access this one from the sides and could barely have any room to move my hands around from the top. In other words, a sub would be great. There is one major problem with the design. The rubber bands aren't strong enough to pull the button back up even though I already reduced the weight, and since it doesn't work if the button doesn't move, obviously, I need to figure out a better solution than rubber bands. And what's that, you might ask? Lego suspension pieces. I think they will have just enough movement to open the clamp enough to fit the arrow in and be able to lift the button high enough to release the arrow. And since they are much stronger than rubber bands, it shouldn't be too hard to make work. I modified the button to fit into these 1x2 Technic bricks with a pinhole in the center, and then built these structures to hold the other end of the springs. I had to use some of these tall panel pieces to hold it up, but we are definitely getting somewhere. And I'm not sure it's somewhere that works. After half an hour of nearly rage quitting over a couple thousand plastic molded feet killers, I got to the point where the only evident problem was lowering the strings by a single plate so that it would open the clamp further, allowing the arrow to fully fit. Okay, now that that's fixed, it works, so I'm going to put the top plate back on, and it should be finished. Okay, well that's totally not infuriating, especially since it's completely my fault that I didn't realize that this brick would offset the entire button by a half stud, meaning it won't fit right into the hole at the top of the block. In other words, I had to take out the springs yet again and risk breaking the weak internal structure. But after a couple minutes, where I think I forgot to breathe, it was done. Okay, hopefully the final moment of truth. Here we go. Let's go. I just built a working Minecraft dispenser out of Lego, and it's pretty cool. More cool videos on the horizon. Make sure to subscribe. But after that, I decided to switch gears and focus on something slightly different. You see, Lego makes Minecraft sets, but for all the similarities Lego and Minecraft have, these sets honestly are pretty inaccurate. So in this video, I'm going to fix Lego Minecraft sets so they are actually accurate to the game. This video is sponsored by World of Warships, but more on them later. Here's the game plan. Step 1, buy the sets. Yeah, I kinda need the sets in order to fix them. Step 2, build the sets. And step 3, fix them to show Lego that I am a way better designer. Just kidding, I love you, Lego. Alrighty, Lego sets acquired. Now I need to build them, starting with the Creeper Ambush, a small set with a simple play feature, and what is that? A red and yellow creeper. Can someone explain to me how that makes any sense? Okay, maybe it's supposed to be mid-explosion. No, creepers turn white when they explode. Anyways, the main thing to fix in this set, besides whatever this abomination is to make everything actually a block tall. As you all probably know by now, to make a Lego cube, you can stack 5 2x2 plates, but instead of following the game, Lego decided to give it like 5 different levels of sand. Okay, time to get to fixing. I started by laying a layer of dirt, sand, and water to outline where everything is going to go. Then I can use these transparent blue bricks to make some much better looking water, and then use a combination of studs and plates in tan to make sand with a nice texture. Then I added these translucent blue tiles on the top of the water to finish it off, and man, it is certainly an upgrade from a blue plate. Then I built up more sand and moved on to the dirt. By using a brown brick with 2 layers of green plates on top, it makes a realistic dirt block. So I made 2 layers of dirt and then added a little crop to one side. Okay guys, if this egg spawns a chicken, you have to subscribe. You know what to do. I finished off the build with a crafting table, some stone, and a piece of coal. And then to replicate the piece of sugarcane going on the beach, I made this weird stock thing with minifigure hands and a bar piece. And no, I did not include the random piece of iron that would definitely not generate there in the actual game. And with that done, our first inaccurate Lego Minecraft set is fixed. But before we move on to fixing the next set, let's talk about this video's sponsor, World of Warships. Don't click off, because World of Warships is a free-to-play PC game that you can play by yourself or recruit in your friends to help you fight. There are over 40 different maps that all have realistic weather, not to mention insane water graphics that literally look like real life. World of Warships has 4 different classes of ships, including cruisers, destroyers, battleships, and aircraft carriers. But if you really want to dive right into the game, you can, because there's even submarines. And all of World of Warcraft ships are extremely accurate recreations of real-life vessels. The game is literally a museum of ships from both World Wars, as well as super cool ships that never actually were built in real life. And if that's not enough, there is new content released every single month. And the game is also available on consoles. So make sure you click the first link in the description and use code FIRE during registration to get 200 doubloons, a premium battleship USS Texas, 20 Restless Fire camouflage, 1 million credits, and 7 days of a premium account, all for free. And thanks again to World of Warships for sponsoring this video. Okay, moving on to the mushroom house set. First I built it. Alex acquired. Okay, apart from things not being a block tall, there's only one major problem with this set. Can you spot it? Well, if you guessed the mushroom cow, then you're right. Mushroom cows only spawn in the mushroom biome, not in mushroom forests. So let's fix it. There isn't any Lego color that fits the dirt color in this biome, so I'm just gonna go with what Lego did and use dark bluish gray. I started by laying out a layer of brown plates, but quickly realized that if I want each block to be 5 plates tall, and there has to be 2 layers of dark gray, there can only be 3 plates that are brown, which is 1 brick tall. So instead of plates on the bottom, I used bricks to make the outline. Then I put down a layer of gray plates and raised up the height of the island to 2 blocks in some places. I also put some jumper plates down instead of 2x2 tiles so that I could put these small mushrooms that spawn in this biome. Then I built up one of these flat mushrooms and used white and tan pieces to make the stalk a little more interesting than just using white. And with that done, I can move on to making the mushroom house. I started by building a 3x3 block of mushroom for the top, and to add the more Minecraft look, I used these 1x1 studs instead of plates. Then I moved on to the sides. I used these 2x4 bricks to make a lip for the sides to be built on, and then I got distracted and added a quick ladder to the stalk of the mushroom. By staggering these plates in this brown color with more plates in white, it makes it look like a ladder, which is much more accurate than this huge thing. Then I decided to build the interior because it'll be much easier now than with the mushroom walls in place. I used the backs of masonry bricks in tan to make accurate birch planks, and then added a Minecraft bed, which, unlike Lego's design, is actually the right length, a furnace, crafting table, and a torch to light it up. Then I started on the sides of the mushrooms. It took so long because every time I added a white stud, I had to use a bunch of small red plates to fill in the spaces, and it was so boring. So while I finish that up, I'll say thank you so much for 100k. Look what's on my pinboard. Let's see how long until I have to take this diagram down to make room for something else. Okay, now that the walls of the mushrooms are finally finished, the mushroom house is completed, and we can place our mushroom cow in its newly fixed home. Okay, that's 2 sets done, but we still have 2 left, and they are way bigger. Let's start with this thing. It's supposed to be some sort of sky base, but there are so many things wrong with it. This door is literally 2x3 instead of Minecraft's 1x2. Nothing is actually a block tall, and how on earth are we supposed to build this roof in the game? I have a lot of fixing to do. Let's start with the base and work up, because I don't really know how I'm going to manage to build something like this that looks good and is also accurate to the game. I started by smooshing these 2 16x16 blades together, and then adding a layer of brown bricks on the outside to make it look like dirt blocks. Then I added another small layer to make it look like it's tapering off at the bottom. I finished it off with some stone spikes, and man, it's looking a lot better than this. I also made a smaller little island as the farm in the set, and a small composter I built, which looks just a little more like the game than Lego's design. And now I have to build a tower. You know what the real problem here is? Okay, now that those horrible creatures are gone, we can move on to the last set, the modern treehouse. Once I finish building this fixed version, I'm actually going to try and build it in the game. Okay, let's get started. I would list all the problems with this set, but I don't want the video to be an hour long. I definitely don't have enough pieces to build a whole new one like I did the other 3 sets, so I'm going to use the original frame of the trees to build my new one. I started by taking off all the grass parts so that I was just left with the technic parts of the tree. Then I built out the frame a little and added base plates to the underside so that it will be a full block tall. The problem is that if I use these green base plates, if it shows on the edges it won't work, because the bottom layer is supposed to be brown. But if I add a layer of 2 wide brown plates around the edge, then it actually works out pretty well. I then added this crop using some dark tan jumper plates, a patch of podzol to have a small bamboo farm like the original set did. Then I added a little beach area with some sand and water, which I took away from the other sets because I have like 5 water blocks in total. Then to finish off the base layer, I also made a small lava pool because it just looks cool. Then I started on the house. I wanted to keep the same color scheme so it all looks like the original set, but I really don't like the weird stack design because half of the sides look bad when it's built like that. So instead, I went for one big room on the bottom level that can be accessed by these ladders. The white block is a representation of smooth quartz, and the burnt orange I decided is supposed to be orange terracotta. I built up the house and added the things inside like this staircase, an actually accurate Minecraft bed, a double chest I built using a jumper plate in this small bracket, some furnaces, and a crafting table. I also added in the official Lego design for bookshelves because unlike the rest of the sets, they are actually a full block tall and look pretty accurate as they are. I also added these glass windows on jumper plates to center them on the blocks so they are actually like Minecraft glass panes. And with that done, I added a small door and then made some sort of modern archway to make it less boring than just a white box. I used tan pieces to make it look like strip birch, and once that was finished, I added the roof, some fencing, and then a giant platform on top made of orange terracotta to act as some sort of storage room. I also built up this small staircase to get from the bottom floor to the top. Okay, it's leaf time. I don't like leaf time. Here we go. Since I was going all out on this build and taking literally everything apart to make sure I had the right pieces, I just used the already existing leaves that came with the set as a base. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I actually built the leaves before I built the house, and I was originally gonna build both the big chunk and the smaller chunk, but after just doing the small one, I realized I was not gonna have even close to enough pieces. I built the leaves by using a bunch of small green plates mixed in with these bright green flower pieces and 1x2 rounded plates to give it texture. I also stole some of these vines from the sky base set to add to the edge of the trees, and finally it was complete. This is my first non-mechanical build since I've actually had an audience, so if you do enjoy this and want to see me do more builds like this, maybe even remake the summer wave of Minecraft sets, comment below. But don't worry, if you didn't like this, I have another mechanical build coming next. Anyways, now it's time to build the fixed modern treehouse set in the actual game. I loaded up a super flat world and got to work. There were literally no problems with building this and everything worked out perfectly. I just fixed 4 Lego sets so they're actually accurate to the game, and they actually turned out pretty cool. Also, please consider subscribing to help me reach my lofty goal of 500k by the end of summer. And after that, I decided to take my Minecraft set fixing skills into a darker place. The Nether. The Minecraft Nether is a hostile but cool place, and of course, LEGO makes Nether sets, but honestly, they just aren't that big, aren't that accurate, and could use a little help. Except the magma, he's perfect. So in this video, I'm going to combine these 2 Minecraft sets to make a bigger Minecraft Nether layout. First, we need to get the sets, so I took a quick trip to Walmart and got 2 Nether-themed Minecraft sets. Alrighty, now that I have the sets, I need to build them. 1 down, 1 to go. Okay, so the first step to combining these sets to make something bigger and better is to figure out the base that I'm going to use to make this. I decided to use a 32x32 base plate next to a 16x32 base plate, and then started laying down a bunch of orange base plates from both sets to make a central lava lake that has different nether biomes all around it. I also added this 2-block little piece in the very center to break it up. And yes, for all of you who commented on the last video saying water and lava are slightly lower than a full block, I wasn't lazy this time and actually made it accurate. Next, I started on laying out where the warped forest would go. Although, I'm gonna be honest, it doesn't end up much of a forest because these green color pieces don't exactly grow on trees. Once I finished laying out where the warped forest was going to go, I added another portal from one of the sets and then decided to make this super awesome, really cool game plan to finish this build. Step 1, build out the back of the warped forest so it isn't just one height. I used a bunch of random colors at the back because nobody's ever gonna see it, and then added a few more blocks of height, which basically used every single block of dark turquoise that I own. I also added some soul torches and then made the 2 center blocks in the lava lake right here part of the warped forest colors too. Step 2, make a little bit of the nether wastes. I used brown for the warped forest because I didn't think I had enough dark red, but I decided to make the wastes out of dark red because it looks way better. Once I finished that little chunk, it was time for step 3 of the super awesome, really cool gameplay. Okay, I'll get to the point. I started making a crimson forest opposite to the warped forest and basically used every single drop of dark red I had. I added the top layer in normal red and put a bunch of mushrooms, multiple layers of ground, and then added a super tall lava stream that flows outward in all 4 directions where it hits the ground. Alrighty, it's time for step 4. It's kinda looking plain at this point, but compared to the original sets, it's a little easier on the eyes. I think in order to spice it up, I'm going to take the bastion from this set and add it into the space where the nether wastes and crimson forest meet, so that there's a little bit more structure and less just landscape. I started by basically taking the majority of the bastion off the original set and figuring out a way to place it. I also wanted to try to maintain the accuracy to Minecraft by keeping things a full block tall for the most part. Bastions in Minecraft are these huge structures that are quite blocky and very randomized in terms of where the blocks are, and I don't really have room because I want the build to look simple. I want it to look like someone went into the game and just took an 8x16 chunk in a random spot in the nether. So instead of filling it with every possible warped forest, crimson forest, nether waste, and bastion detail, I want a simple bit of all of them. I decided that the chunk of the bastion would be sitting slightly out over the lava, and then I built it up by filling it out with more blocks rather than just thin plates and single bricks. I also popped down a chest with 2 netherite ingots, 2 iron nuggets, and this pork chop, which for some reason is just really satisfying. Once that was done, I stepped back to admire where this project was going. And it's going in a place that's really flat. Like, really, really flat. And I need to do something about that. Just like you need to do something about the fact that you aren't subscribed. Unless you are, in which case, thank you. In order to deal with the underwhelming height of the model, I decided I needed to make the entire back of it a big cliff. Which is a great idea if you have unlimited brown and dark red pieces, but I happen to not have unlimited Lego supply. Yo, RJM Bricks, just order more pieces, I'm sure you can. Well, unless I want this build to take even longer to finish, which I don't, I'm just gonna stick with the pieces I already have, which isn't enough to do an entire cliff, but it's enough to suggest that a cliff is there. Once I figured out that making a cliff this long all the way across wouldn't work, I started working on a smaller cliff that could just go in one corner. I started with a long stack of brown bricks and then slowly started expanding it upwards and outwards like Minecraft cliffs tend to do. For this, I just imagined there is a much bigger cliff connected that stretches along the back of this and to the right side, but I don't have near enough pieces and it's not in this specific chunk. I also moved the lava to a different place under the cliff, which makes it convincingly look like it pouring out of a hole in the cliff. I also extended the cliff a little further to the left to make it as big as possible with my last brown bricks. Okay, now that the build is finished, mushrooms and everything, I want to spice it up, so I'm going to add onto the mobs and characters I already have. This strider is really cool, and the magma is even cooler, but I don't have any more mobs other than this baby pork chop maker, so I'm going to try and build some of my own. Enderman building time. I started with these snot bricks and then added long tiles on the sides to make legs. Then I put another snot brick on the top, added arms, and built a head, which doesn't look great, but for not having any printed elements, I think it works. I may have made them a bit too tall, but it'll work. And with the Enderman build, it's time to add minifigures. I added one about to kill this baby hoglin, a kitted out player with an Elytra who just jumped off the cliff and started flying, 2 Steves mid-fist fight, a panda sneakily mining some gold, Alex looting a chest about to steal a netherite ingot, and this player with wart fungus on a stick riding a strider. I also added this full netherite player who just joined the nether and is up on the portal about to do whatever lore you guys come up in the comments for him. Then I decided to take one of the fist-fighting Steves and put him on the ground where he evidently splatted. If you take a minifigure apart and then lay each body part out, it kind of looks like it just hit the ground. And then I put some items all around, like a bookcase, some eggs, weapons, and a lava bucket. I really want this model to feel like a server of like 8 people who are just exploring the nether together. But with that, I finished this model. I think the minifigures helped a lot, and if you aren't already subscribed, please consider subscribing. But it's hard to fix something that's just plain old boring. So after that, I decided to go and upgrade Minecraft Lego sets. In this video, I'm going to take several new Lego Minecraft sets and upgrade them using my own Lego bricks so they are way cooler, much larger, and way better. And then I'm going to make my own custom Lego set using everything I learned. Are you ready, Steve? Okay, so earlier I said goodbye to my wallet and bought 6 different Lego sets, and it's time to upgrade the first set. Ew, Steve, why are you so sweaty? It's basically just a small chunk of the desert. It comes with a baby camel, a cactus, a campfire, a phantom, and a little tent for Steve to sleep in. But it's tiny and boring, so I'm gonna fix it by making it much larger and actually accurate to the game. The first thing I'm gonna do is take these 2 plates and build a base for our new model. Then I'm gonna add a large cave entrance on one side of the base, making sure each block is a perfect square just like in Minecraft. But in the original set, Steve was living in a little tent, so on the other side I'll build a much larger one using a handful of these profile bricks to mimic the texture of Minecraft logs. Then at the back, I'll make the sloping canopy of the tent using a bunch of white bricks. But in Minecraft, blocks can float like this, so to make it as realistic as possible, I use these pieces to connect each layer without it being noticeable. And finally, I added some small details like 2 cacti, the mobs from the original set, and a few furnishings for Steve's new tent. And okay, wow, Steve's new crib looks like a sick Airbnb. But we can't celebrate too early because there's still 5 other sets I need to upgrade, and this next set is meant to look like a turtle house. Also, why does LEGO add these tabs? I literally cannot open them. It comes with a turtle, a handful of baby turtles, a player, and a drowned. But honestly, this turtle is pretty cool, so I'm gonna make my own version of a world turtle, but with a castle on its back. I used a bunch of small parts in gray and tan, like headlight bricks, cheese slopes, and masonry bricks to make the castle walls. But it would be even cooler if the castle was enclosed so that the turtle can go underwater, so I used these large clear panel pieces to make a glass dome. And I also dripped the turtle out with his own helmet. It's very swooshable. It reminds me of a snow globe. Wow, that's actually pretty cool looking. I wonder if this thing can actually go underwater. So let's fill up the tub. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, he definitely drowned. But moving on. Okay, so this next set is an 868-piece iron golem fortress. Dog test. It's approved, boys. It's got these 2 pillars and a main building, which has the upper body of the golem, as well as 2 skeleton horses, a charged creeper, and 2 different players. But this set actually upgrades itself, because we can take it apart and actually make this giant iron golem. So to upgrade this myself, why don't we make the arms actually spin? I swapped out the connectors in the arms for axle holes and then ran 2 axles through it, and then using the circuit cube motor we can power it up using these 2 gears. Well, that clearly doesn't work because the gears keep skipping, but I think if I change the gear ratio it will give the motor more torque, which will hopefully be enough to rotate the arms. But this large gear doesn't fit, so I had to modify the front of the golem, and I also added this small beam here to make sure the gears don't slip like last time. Okay, moment of truth. Yes, oh my goodness, it actually spins, finally. No, dude, chill out, I didn't punch the villager. But what's better than a golem statue with spinning arms? A Minecraft Legends set. Bro, what even is that? Well, I suppose I better build it. I'm gonna be honest, I bought this set as a joke because I don't think anyone cares about Minecraft Legends or whatever this thing is, but it's actually my favorite set yet. There's tons of cool colors and pieces, and this bird honestly looks so cool. There's also a bunch of new parts like this headpiece, this instrument, and a new color of orange that only comes in a couple sets. There's even some new printed parts, so this set honestly gets the green check, and we're gonna move on to the 5th set. This is the frog house. Okay, this set needs help because these Lego frog pieces are super cute and they deserve better than this, so why don't I build them a kingdom atop an island? I'll start with a blue base plate and make an outline using blue tiles, then we can build up a tall island. Wow, that was quick. Then I'll add some water, thanks Steve, and let's add some lily pads using some small green tiles. But I think it would be funny if the castle didn't match the island and wasn't Minecraft style, so I started by building a long bridge going off the side of the island for our frog. And now we need some castle walls. Wow, those are actually so detailed, I deserve a pat on the back for that build. I'll add a flag, and then start building up the castle tower using more tiny pieces. And now we can add the frogs. Okay, I just upgraded and fixed 4 different Minecraft sets, but we still have one final set to upgrade before we build our own. Now you're probably thinking, why didn't you save the biggest set for last? Well, stop thinking and just watch the video. Also, it became the biggest upgrade yet. This is the armory. I love Minecraft instructions. It's like put these 2 pieces together. I did it! It's got multiple armor stands, another portal, and a bunch of replica Minecraft blocks. But why would I want 3 little plates when I could have an entire room? So to start, I'm going to make a base just like the first one, but 1 plate larger. And since this armory needs to look really cool, I laid out a circle pattern on the floor to determine where the walls will go. Then I'll add 2 custom armor stands with full netherite armor and some pillars using the backsides of masonry bricks. But I want this build to look like it's sunken into the ground, so we need a way in and out. Stairs are too big to fit here, so why don't we build a water elevator and a water landing spot? That way it takes up less space. I also built my own nether portal at the back. Then behind these pillars, I'll build up some terrain starting with stone and then blending it into dirt at the top. Oh, and before I build the other side, I'll throw in a couple torches to light it up. And after building the other side, the armory is done. But no, our job isn't done yet, because this is an armory, and why would you need an armory? Well, maybe because you're preparing for war. And war against what, you might ask? A Lamborghini. And now that that's completely and utterly destroyed, I want to make my own Lego set based on Minecraft. Let's start with the characters. This needs to be like a UCS Minecraft set, so I'll make a display stand for the ultimate collection of characters. We've got Steve, Alex, an iron golem, a zombie, a creeper, a chicken, and the most important, a furnace and crafting table. But you thought I was done? Well, no, because we can't forget man's best friend, the dog, so I speedran to Target and bought 1 final Minecraft set. There it is. Make sure you don't punch my dog, but you should punch the subscribe button. Okay, and now that we have all the characters, I want to build this iconic screen from the Minecraft game that probably everyone recognizes. So for one final time, I used one of these plate pieces and started building. I'm gonna need a mix of dirt and stone, so I got a bunch of bricks and plates in both colors and started with the ground in front. This pathway here is actually slightly lower than the grass, so using this technique that Cheesy Studios has utilized in his Minecraft builds, I can lower the path tiles ever so slightly. Then I'll add the water in the corner, which is a whole plate lower than the grass, as you all pointed out when I didn't do it in this video. Now that the base is done, I'll start building up the cave as close to the original image as possible. And speaking of which, I'm actually going to extend the build back 1 extra plate so it can have more depth, and also so I can put a couple custom trees at the back so it's exactly like the photo. And at the back, I'm going to use an orange light brick to try and replicate this glowing feeling it has. It's connected by a simple button, but I'll demonstrate that once the rest of the cave is finished. Then let's add a bunch of grass on top and some tall grasses and flowers. And with that all done, I'll add the mobs. And yes, I speedrun building this this in real life too. Here's a pig, a chicken, and a bat using this clear piece, and a sheep. And finally, I'll place Steve and Alex in their action poses with the iron sword and diamond pickaxe. And wow, I just built a completely custom Minecraft set and upgraded 5 other sets to be way cooler. Wow, it does like nothing. Oh wait, there's one final detail to add. But I realized I hadn't really done much with mobs, so for the next video I decided to build large-scale Minecraft mobs that actually work. This is a Minecraft magma cube made out of hundreds of Lego bricks, and if I lift the top of it, it splits into sections to reveal an orange core just like the in-game mob. And this is me spending hours motorizing a Lego Minecraft Silverfish so it can move like in the game. In this video I made realistic Minecraft mobs out of Lego, and then made them functional to make each one even cooler. Okay, so I have this small magma cube from another set I bought for this video, and it has a really satisfying mechanism that lets it split into sections when you lift the top. I want to scale this design up to make an even bigger version, but I have basically none of any of the colors or pieces required to make it. So I hopped onto Bricklink, aka did /game mode creative, and spent about $300 on a bunch of pieces. But while I wait for those, I'm going to make a mechanism that makes this tiny magma cube jump up and down, and this Minecraft set called the Rabbit Ranch has this mechanism that makes one of the rabbits jump up and down too. So I went to Target and bought it. Okay, so basically at the back there's a little lever that pushes up on this axle when you push down. Did I just spend $35 for the probably most simple mechanism in this video? Yes, but now I own 2 Minecraft bunnies, so I'm not complaining. But now I'm going to replicate it for the small Minecraft magma cube. But we don't need this set anymore, so drop test. I built it out of dark red and added a small diorama of the Nether around it, including this little lava pool using a 2x4 plate with these small holes in it for the axle to go through. And then we can add our little magma cube, and it's done. Wow, that's really satisfying. Now I want to motorize the medium-sized magma cube. I found that if you push up on the axle inside this magma cube with another axle, it lifts the top up and fully extends it. But what will work even better is if I switch out this 3-stud long axle for a 5-stud long one. That way when the magma cube is fully extended, the axle on the end just has to be pushed up to the bottom of the cube. Then I can use a cam mechanism to push the axle up and down repeatedly as this motor turns. We can build a box around the cam, making sure there's enough room for the cam to spin in all directions, and then hook a motor to the front of the build. And since the magma cube is built sideways, I changed out the 1x4 plate on the back for a 2x4 plate so that I can hook it sideways with these snot bricks. Then I tiled it over, hooked the motor up to an IR receiver, and tested it out. Wow, that's actually so cool. Oh, and I also switched out the cam for this round piece so it ran smoother. Now that the 2 small magma cubes have leveled up their jumping abilities, I want to build a silverfish, and then motorize it so that it moves side to side like this. Now, you're probably wondering why I would want to make a silverfish of all mobs. It's small, annoying, and usually forgotten about. Well, silverfish are an ancient creature destined to guard and protect the Ender portal from the player, who has ruthlessly killed and slaughtered all the silverfish's hostile mob brethren in order to open the portal. Just kidding, they are just small and the motion will look cool in Lego, that's literally it. My idea for this build is to build the silverfish 4-stud long sections so that I can control each one separately and make them do some sort of wave motion. So I started with the head and worked my way back. I also added some blocks sticking out to act like all the spine silverfish have in the game. Okay, now that we are finished, we have a not very intact Lego Minecraft silverfish. Top comment gets to decide what it gets named. Also, for some reason, it looks like a seal if I flip the head upside down and put it here. Okay, now that the to-be-decided named Silverfish, is built, we need to make a mechanism to make it swim back and forth. And yes, I know silverfish don't swim, that's just what I'm calling this motion. This isn't going to be as simple as a lever mechanism or even a camshaft like I used for the medium-sized magma cube. Instead, I need to make each section of silverfish get pushed and pulled back and forth at a slight offset to each piece next to it. Let's start with a 32x32 base plate, which will give us just the right amount to fit the silverfish. Then I'm going to try and use these crank pieces powered by a bunch of the same size gears to push and pull the silverfish sections. I built a long beam to hold all the gears, and in order to make them all turn in the same direction, there's a single small gear in between each bigger one. Then I can offset each crank by a couple of gear teeth so that the whole mob isn't moving together. I kept building for hours and finally got to a point where I could test it out. I'll need to build an entire flat space underneath the Silverfish to support each beam, but the motor isn't strong enough to power that many gears while also pushing and pulling the weight of Silverfish. I tried adding another motor on the end, but they don't rotate perfectly in sync, and it looks bad, which means back to the drawing board. My next plan of action after a couple seconds of thought is to use a horizontal axle to turn large gears that push and pull Technic beams. Yes, I know that sounds really complicated, you're just gonna have to wait and see. The one major problem with this plan though is because yes, there just has to be a major problem, is that if I put every gear on the driven axle, the beam will cross through the axle and won't be able to turn. So instead of putting those gears on the main axle, I put smaller ones on it and then built these little assemblies to hold larger axles that won't have to deal with the central axle getting in the way. That was a lot of axles. At first I didn't space each gear right in relation to each section of Silverfish, but I went back and fixed it so that all the beams were centered with each section. Then I added these inverted Technic pinhole pieces to each section of Silverfish and started building a base for the mob to sit on. It needs to have these gaps in it so that each beam can run through it, so I used a bunch of long plates and then tiled it over so it's smooth. Then I used some pillars and panel pieces to raise it to the right height. Okay, it's almost time to test it out, but in order to make it the right speed, I need to use the same infrared receiver and a controller. Okay, moment of truth. Okay, it works, but there's one small issue I need to fix, like the fact that some of the large gears need to be shifted slightly so there's more variation in the movement between each section, which I fixed pretty fast. And to finish it up, I want to add a front wall out of these dark gray bricks. With that finished, here's the finished model, and it works pretty well. It's very satisfying. Okay, that's the first 2 magma cubes and a Silverfish complete, but now it's time to begin the final magma cube. My bricklink orders have finally arrived. Okay, that's about 2,500 parts, and now I'm gonna start. But as I sat down to build my 32 by 32 magma cube, I realized something. 2,500 pieces may be a lot, but I definitely under-ordered on bricks and probably got just the right amount of plates. But logic says that these, sadly, are not equal to these, so I decided to save myself the struggle of starting all over and just went with the 16 by 16 magma cube instead. So I got to work. Okay, so here's the first layer done, and it's probably a good time to tell you how I'm going to make this whole thing work. These are rail pieces, and these are the inverse of that piece that I bought in this rare yellow color to match the core of the magma cube. I'm going to build the whole thing sideways so that the rails will be vertical, meaning each outer section can move up and down. I also ordered a bunch of black and dark red inverted 2x2 tiles to smooth out the back and really go the extra mile. I added 2 rail pieces sticking up by 1 stud so that the core can raise 2 studs when the magma cube is lifted up. Then I built the second layer of magma cube as well as the core. I used a reference photo of a real mob and replicated each pixel 1 by 1 with these 2x2 tiles on the front and the inverted ones on the back. That part was so satisfying to tile. And then it was on to the final layer. Just like this little magma cube that started the idea for this whole video, the top layer needs to be twice as thick as the rest in order to make it work well. So I started building up the layers of bricks and got to the eyes. I ordered some of these orange and yellow tiles that I've been using for the core of the magma cube that are just the right colors to make the eyes as well. Then I finished the top of the outer layer, worked my way to the top of the core of the magma cube, also adding these inverted rail pieces sticking out of the top with stoppers to make the magma cube top lift to the perfect height and not come off. And with that done, if I lift up on the top of the magma cube, it actually works. I just built 3 different working Minecraft magma cubes of increasing sizes and a moving silverfish named, well, you decide. And I think it would be fitting to end this video with drop test. I honestly can't believe how much stuff I threw on the floor in my old videos. But next, I decided to turn non-Minecraft LEGO sets into the blocky Minecraft style builds. I'm about to turn this giant LEGO castle into a massive Minecraft kingdom with numerous players, a detailed interior, and a huge tower. This LEGO city train into a sprawling minecart layout, as well as convert multiple other LEGO sets into Minecraft builds. All the way down to the smallest of the LEGO sets, a tropical parrot. Minecraft has 4 different colored parrots, and it just so happens that one of them is exactly the same colors as this Lego set. So for the first set, I'm going to recreate this in pixel form. I'll start with the top of a grass block for the parrot to stand on and then place its feet, and build up its body using these hinge pieces to hold it in the same angle it sits in the game. Then we can place the tail, head, and wings. Wow, that's pretty good looking, but later on in this video, I'm going to be showing you the transformation of this Lego Viking village in Minecraft form, and even this 4,500 piece Lego castle. But first, I think it's time we move on to the next set. A 1,500 piece remake of an iconic Lego spaceship. It has a cockpit for 4 classic space minifigs, working landing gear, jet engines that turn into little spacecrafts, and the back even opens up to reveal a little moon buggy. By the way, don't expect any of these functions or details in my model. First, I need to lay out the shape of the base, so we're gonna need a lot of gray plates. Then, after the shape is defined, I'll add a support structure using Technic beams surrounded by lots of gray bricks to build the first block layer. Then I'll tile it off in gray with some yellow and black wool as an attempt to replicate this design here. Why does it look like an angry elephant? Oh, it's because you haven't subscribed yet. Then I attempted to build the jet boosters while staying accurate to the game, which went as well as you could expect. They are a bit chunky, but using stairs and a stone fence, I sorta created the cone shape. And here's how I recreated the space logo using a stripped spruce log and a mangrove stair. Yeah, you're gonna have to use your imagination on this one. And finally, using almost all the blue bricks, plates, and tiles I have, we can build up the walls of the spaceship cockpit. And I'll throw in a white plus sign here since this little arrow is way too small to make out of Minecraft blocks. And now there are just 2 pieces left to add, these windshields. But I only have about 2 trans yellow pieces, so instead I built the whole windshield sideways in clear and put a bunch of yellow bricks underneath as an attempt to make it look the same. Wow, that took a lot more pieces and was way more challenging to build than I expected, but it's finally finished. Lego also makes art sets where they take thousands of tiny round tiles and make mosaics of popular characters or pictures. So for the next build, I want to turn one of them into a Minecraft painting. I already have this one of a flower, so first I'll lay down the brown border just like a normal Minecraft painting. Then for every 2x2 section of these tiles, I'm gonna see which color has the most and place a tile on my painting. It took quite a lot of patience and I had to change some of the colors based on the pieces I had on hand, but honestly I think it fits pretty well with the pre-existing Minecraft paintings. But it's time we moved on to a building, more specifically a Viking village from this 2,100 piece set. It has some of the most detailed Lego minifigures I own, as well as some cool features like a working fire, a flexible rope bridge, and accessible interiors. And now I'm going to try and recreate it in Minecraft Lego form. I started by placing 2 blue base plates, which will be the border around the Viking village, and made an outline using more of these blue tiles. Next, I'll start building up the island that the house sits on. We also have this little mini one here on the side for this tower from the original model. And now that there is a base laid out, I can start cooking up the details of this set, starting with the dock out front. I'm going to use profile bricks to make the texture of logs, and then use a sideways building technique to make the planks using the backsides of masonry bricks. Okay, that's super satisfying, but let's also throw in some snow on top to make it even cooler. The island also needs one more layer of blocks though to match up with the height of the dock, which will also hold it in place. Another thing we can add are these houses, so I'll mark down where they'll go using some 2x2 bricks and then build the paths that go around. I lowered these pieces by 1 plate since dirt paths in Minecraft are also slightly lower than a full block. For the first house, it's half open, so I'll use some logs to make the 4 corners of the build and planks to build the back part like in the set. Then we can build this fireplace, so I'll build more cobblestone, which is a very slow process. At the top, I even used a bunch of tiny brown tiles to replicate trapdoors around the top of the chimney. And since it's a blacksmith, I'll also add this 5-piece anvil design. And finally, I'll add the roof using wood stairs, which at first ended up looking like a croissant, but after I fixed it, it works pretty well. But that's only the first of 3 buildings, and since I was running low on pieces and didn't just want to make it another brown blob, I decided to use dark red as mangrove wood for the chieftain's house. The roof was way harder to build since I didn't really have any tiles in the possible colors left, so it's super flat and kinda inaccurate to the game. But who cares about Lego Minecraft being accurate to the game anyways? For the final building, I built up a watchtower and added a blue banner at the top. But since it's a Viking village after all, I'm gonna pretend that they got pillaged and that the final house got burnt down. Definitely not a cover-up for running out of detail pieces. But you know what is even cooler than a Viking village, or the remnants of one? Trains. And I happen to have this Lego City passenger train that is very that was a very bad idea. Very satisfying to drive around on the many tracks I've laid out. So I'm gonna make a minecart train as well as a layout to travel around involving different biomes, dimensions, and mobs. First, I'll build the minecarts using the train pieces and motors that the set came with. Why is it so cute? And now let's build some details for the train to travel around, like a small forest and a cave for it to travel through. And I'll also add this cool nether portal that will move out of the way when the minecart drives through it. And since we're in the nether, I'll add a ghast using lots of white pieces.
Yeah, I definitely should have looked up what a ghast looks like.
And a lava pool to travel through. And finally, I'll add the Minecraft parrot next to the original set, the two paintings to compare, and both Viking villages. And now that we've added everything, including the custom models from this video, there's one final build I must complete before running the Minecraft train. I'm gonna take this massive Lego Lion Knight's castle and build a Minecraft version that can go in the very middle of the Minecraft track. First, I'll build it. That took longer than expected. And wow, I've wanted this set for so long and it did not disappoint. It opens up to make an even larger castle, has a working drawbridge and portcullis, as well as a water wheel that turns a grindstone, a little metal gate at the back that goes up and down, and a secret escape. But now it's finally time to turn this huge castle into a Minecraft castle. And on my table I have 4 base plates laid out and I'm gonna build the foundation on them. The original set has an outline of grass and some water, so I'll add that around the outline of the castle. In Minecraft, I've seen people use lots of different types of blocks to create a gradient, so I spent a couple hours making deep slate blocks, cobbled deep slate blocks, stone bricks, and stone blocks to hopefully create a cool look around the base of the castle. And now I want to start building up the walls. Then at the front of the building, I'm going to add 2 watchtowers at the top where we can eventually place minifigures. But castles often have one super tall tower, so in the very center of the build, I'm going to place some super tall stone walls, and at the top, I'll build another lookout area as well as a small house using black and white bricks in an attempt to match the look of this house here. It turned out alright. Then at the top I'll add a roof with grass and a wizard brewing some sort of potion in a Minecraft cauldron. Very realistic, I know. Having a bridge leading into the castle would also be cool, so I added one in the front. I also want to make the ground a bit more detailed, so I made some rocks at the base near the water as well as some flowers dotted around the grass. But it looks kind of like a Star Wars set with this much gray, so I'm going to add a bunch of details like vines climbing up the castle walls, some function blocks along the top watchtowers, and inside I'll place a market using designs from Minecraft, an armory just like the original set with a bunch of Minecraft swords, axes, bows, and pickaxes. We also need a place for all our knights to rest up so they can fight well, so here's some barracks using Minecraft accurate beds, unlike Lego's version. And lastly, they need to eat so they can sprint and not die of hunger, so here's a chef to cook them up some delicious meals using a smoker, campfire, and cauldron. Then we can add the last details like some evil mobs outside the castle walls and all the minifigures from the original set. And okay, wow, it's finally done, so we can place it in the very center of the train tracks and let it run. That train is really cool, and I just turned normal Lego sets into Minecraft. Subscribe. Wow, that video was expensive because Lego is not cheap. And speaking of not cheap, for the next video, I decided to build $1 versus a $1,000 Lego Minecraft build. In this video, I took Minecraft minifigures, mobs, and pieces and challenged myself to build $1 Lego creations. Then I dropped over $1,000 to buy about 10,000 Lego bricks and see what Minecraft build I could make with a $1,000 budget. Then I had a literal Lego Masters contestant and pro Lego Minecraft builder judge my creation. I have a lot of Lego Minecraft mobs, so I want to start by building small scenes with them. You can use a clear Lego rod to have a Minecraft player being attacked by an angry bee. This is a Lego goat, and this piece works well as a goat horn that it dropped. And here's a Minecraft player riding a pig with a carrot on a stick. And this is a Minecraft Enderman caught in the act of stealing Steve's precious diamond ore. No, Steve, don't look at him. Wow, rip Lego Steve. And along the topic of Minecraft ores, we can build them all in Lego as well. We've got diamond with light aqua, emeralds using these green 1x1 studs, lapis in darker blue, and then coal, iron ore, some gold, and redstone. You can also use some 1x1 plates in green to add more detail to a dirt block. Stacking some 2x2 trans blue bricks looks like a waterfall, and here's Steve who just completed an epic water bucket clutch. A 2x2 Lego plate can be used as a trapdoor to hide the entrance of a super secret base, and on the topic of Minecraft blocks and items, here's a simple design for an azalea bush from the Lush Caves, and we can also build a cool glowberry vine to go along with it. And in the $1,000 Lego build, I actually built an entire section of a Lush Cave as part of it, so make sure you keep watching to see that. Since Lego only makes a select few of the utility blocks, here's a custom smoker design. Steve is really enjoying that cooked pork chop. But Steve got caught lacking, and here's a build of him sinking in powdered snow. I literally just ripped off his legs and used some jumper plates to center him on the block. And since Steve no longer has legs, he might need a new mode of transportation. This is a simple $1 build of a minecart using some gray pieces, and we can also throw in this TNT block to make it explosive. And since I don't have Lego's official boat design, here's a small aquatic wit for Steve.
Let me try the boat.
Okay, now before we get get into some more spicy builds, I had TD Bricks build a couple of his own sus $1 creations.
Okay, so RJM challenged me to make some quick $1 Minecraft builds, so this is what I made. This first thing I built is an Enderman standing in water. Yes, it is very cursed and it is hurting my brain cell right now. This next build is a sus villager that turned into a spider and is now holding a bunch of emeralds. This next build is Minecraft Steve who got hit by a shulker, and as you can see, he's now suspending in the air just waiting to fall to his death without any armor because he's a noob. And this final build is Steve who got killed by a bee, and then the bee died. Karma. That bee really got karma. And since Steve is a complete noob, we can see the dumb things he had in his inventory. He had a gold sword, an enchanted hoe. Like, out of all things you can enchant, you enchant a hoe. A wooden shovel, an egg, bucket without anything in it, and a cookie. And since RJM isn't gonna say it, I'm gonna say it for him, but make sure you guys subscribe or else I'm gonna make your Minecraft character look like this.
I'm going to have nightmares after seeing that villager spider, but now I want to build my own cursed Minecraft creation, so here's a fermented spider eye that literally uses a Lego cherry piece. Maybe it came from the villager. Here's two different uses for these 1x1x2 plates. A dark orange one makes a perfect potted plant, and the one in white is a great base for a Minecraft candle. Here's a minifigure scale Minecraft anvil using some dark gray, and we can swap out the tile on top for some black tiles and studs to make it look used and about to crack. A simple way to make an item frame is by using a tan jumper plate and putting an item on the stud like this 1x1 tile in green for a cactus, or this piece for a bucket. And speaking of buckets, here's a bucket of tropical fish using just a few pieces. Now for some rapid fire $1 builds. This is a game accurate spruce door, and here's a fully kitted out player drinking a fire resistance potion in the Nether. I used this Lego employee to depict a master builder holding a giant scale baby zombie, and here's Steve eating a chorus fruit. Where'd it go? Oh. Alright, now that we've built a bunch of $1 Lego Minecraft creations, I'm gonna blow $1,000 on molded plastic and build one giant creation. This 32x32 base plate will work perfect to make an entire Minecraft chunk. So here's the game plan. Step 1, the deep dark. Step 2, the caves. Step 3, the overworld. Step 4, the cliffs, and finally, Step 5, the characters and mobs. Before construction begins though, I need to fill my inventory, so I acquired every single new Minecraft set off of Lego's website. Okay, all the sets are finished, but I'll need way more pieces than that, so I went ahead and ordered 9,000 more pieces off of Bricklink. Okay, now that those are here, I think we're ready to start building. I'll start with this dark gray 32x32 base plate and use a bunch of these tiles for the deep slate, and a bunch of smaller plates and tiles to make skulk veins that creep over the ground. We can also throw in some of these spicy special blocks from the deep dark Lego set we got earlier, like this skulk catalyst, this shrieker, and some skulk sensors. Now that the base is in place, I put down some masonry bricks as deep slate tiles and used a bunch of candles like in the game. The ancient cities also have some cool structures, so I put together a small archway using more masonry bricks, and then used a ton of my extra dark blue plates to build a small pond in one corner. Next, we need to build up the walls to slope upwards so that it can actually support everything that's going to be above it. So I went through and used a bunch of the dark gray bricks I ordered, and put some redstone ore hiding behind a brick wall using the same method as those other $1 builds. Wait, no Steve, the build isn't done yet, don't take that. Then I made sure each deep slate pillar was level at the top and added a ring of light gray plates, which brings us to step 2. Okay, so we just built the bottom section of a Minecraft chunk, but now it's time to build the things in the middle. Before I start the first cave, I added some diamonds for Steve to find and a small dirt patch to make it more realistic. I also have these pick-a-brick cups full of water pieces, so we can add a small pool at the bottom of this cave and then start building up the walls. I added a bit of dripstone at the lowest part of the cave and then went speed build mode and finished the entire cave. There was a lot of boring filling that I didn't show, but I added a bunch of different ore clusters and a lot of layers of stone. Another cool underground structure is a skeleton spawner, which actually uses a bunch of cobblestone, so I'm going to use a lot of these 1x1 round tiles to make the cobblestone blocks distinguishable from the normal stone. My fingers took one for the team and spent 40 minutes straight just placing tiny cobblestone blocks, and then I threw in this chest full of epic loot, including this music disc for Steve to jam out to. And we can't forget the actual spawner itself. Now that that is done, I built up more walls and spiced it up by adding us another small little pond. The final world generation I want to add into the stone section of the chunk is a lush cave. We can start by adding some clay layers with white bricks and then ponds in the water between them. And then add these moss blocks and a couple azalea bushes that we built earlier. Now that the stone part of the lush cave has been constructed, let's throw in some glowberry vines to make it really pop. Thankfully I have a pick-a-brick cup full of leaf pieces, and I also got some of these light green leaf pieces in a bricklink order. And we can throw in some of these orange pieces as the glowberries. I used these Technic pins to hang the vines upside down, and with that all done, the structures and biomes in the underworld are complete. I finished up the walls with some more ores, and now I can move on to step 3 of the ultimate game plan. Okay, so I started laying down the first layer of brown, but I forgot that I would need to blend the stone into the dirt to make it look more organic. So now I have to take off this entire layer, and I guarantee a lot of these brown bricks are going to break. Bruh. Rest in peace, brown plate. Now that I've finished blending the stone into the dirt and building up the walls, let's start the top of the overworld off with a lake. I threw in a couple lily pads on top to accommodate the literal best mob LEGO has ever made for Minecraft. Then we can sauce in some delicious 2x2 green tiles to smooth it all over. I also put some jumper plates in there so there's spots to connect players and mobs. To spice up the world generation and use more of the brown bricks I bought, I'm going to add an archway and a cliff at the back, which brings us on to game plan part 4. Now that we have an arch and a bit of the cliff built up, let's go steal Steve's bucket that he lost from dying to a bee and fill up another lake. Then we can start tiling the top over, build up the mountain slope, throw in a shiny emerald, and finally top it off with a small ice peak at the top. Wow, that was like putting the star on the top of a Christmas tree. Now that it's finished, I'm going to have an ex-LEGO Masters contestant and LEGO Minecraft builder legend, Cheesy Studios, judge my build. Yo.
Hey, oh wow, that is much taller than I expected it to be. That's fantastic. I like how we've got even the deep dark down at the bottom with the changing of the stone color. And a dungeon up here. Oh, awesome! That's actually the spawner design that I had used quite a few years ago now. I think that's really effective. Oh, awesome! So, dripstone cave, bats from the ceiling. I like the addition of the ore in the side. You even got the dirt patch. And love the amount of players that you're including here, too. That's another great way to add some color and life into a build. Yes, that can eat up leaf and green parts like crazy. Glad you added one though, because especially in a gray underground area, that can add so much life. Yes, let's get to the surface. Oh, you gotta have the pandas and the bamboo. I guess the one thing, there's a lot of dirt. That's a lot of dirt. Did you run out of gray? Bruh. Yeah, the only thing I would like to would have seen maybe on the surface is some more gray, but if you ran out of bricks, I can't really blame you for that. Good job adding the texture into the jungle trees though with the profile bricks there. That does help a lot. Oh, hey, more water. Oh, and it's cold and you've changed the water color. That's actually really good. This is crazy how tall it gets. Great to see the shulker box in there too. Oh, I like how you extended the stone down in the back. That's really nice. All the way around though where the stone meets the dirt though, you could have easily just made that a straight line, but I'm glad you didn't. Breaking it up like that just feels like you grabbed a proper chunk from Minecraft and built it in bricks. That's awesome. Yeah, overall, I like this a lot. I mean, the amount of like details that you've added on the sides with the caves and stuff is fantastic.
Thanks again to Ty for building some sus $1 builds and to Cheesy for judging my build. I'll link both their channels below, so make sure you go subscribe to both of them. Next, I decided to look back on my old roots of building redstone in Minecraft, but instead of making it giant, I made it minifigure scale. LEGO Technic is the redstone of Minecraft, but for all 111 sets they've released, only one redstone component has ever been included, and it's the ore. So in this video, I created a checklist of every common redstone component in Minecraft, and I'm going to work my way to the top of the list, starting at the most basic of them all, redstone dust, and building my way up to the most complicated blocks. LEGO, you better start taking notes. In order to complete the 2 final builds, I need to first build a bunch of different items from 3 different tiers, starting at the very bottom with redstone dust. On the surface, I'll use a variation of small red tiles to create the look of redstone, but to actually make it functional, we have to go underground. Not that deep. There we go. I'll use a red Technic axle since it's redstone, and using red ones just makes the most sense. Now we can build a redstone repeater, which is most commonly used to renew the signal of redstone. So in our case, wherever we have to add a coupling to the axles to make them longer, I'll add one of these small assemblies on top. Alright, that's the simplest tier complete, and now that we have a way to transmit the redstone signal, we can move up to the activation, starting with a button. I want these builds to be minifigure scale, meaning every bit of mechanism has to be contained below the ground since nothing will fit in a 2x2 block. So I'll use these 2 little pieces for a button, then I can make an assembly using some of these bendy bricks that can be put in a square shape to make sure that the button is reset in the right spot after being pressed. And why don't I build a working redstone torch to show that each activation actually works? Wait, redstone is a power source and doesn't need a button to power it. Oh well, it's the thought that counts anyways. Since the design LEGO uses incorporates a piece with a hole in it, I'll just swap out the 2 transparent pieces for red ones, and then use this red colored light brick to shoot its beam to the top of the torch. Then we can combine the 2 and build them into a hill to cover up all the mechanisms. Then when the button is pressed, the whole assembly moves downwards to hit a lever and push up on the light brick. And speaking of levers, that's next on our list. I use some 1.5 thick plates to give the lever a raised up effect. Then underneath I'll use some Technic pieces to activate the torch. Now when I turn the lever, it turns the light on and off. What about a pressure plate? A simple 2x2 tile works for the looks, but for the mechanism I'll use the same design as the button. Wait, no, Steve, don't walk on that. Then, for the final bit of redstone in this level, let's see if we can make a working tripwire. I'll add a spot for this clear beam to sit and then build up some brown bricks around it. It doesn't activate anything, but it works how I'd imagine a tripwire does. Okay, now that we have a way to transfer the redstone and multiple ways to activate it, we can build all the blocks and items that can be powered by redstone. I'll start with a piston since it was really cool when I built the giant one. Steve, you got this one for me. Good job, Steve. We can flip the lever back and forth and it extends and retracts the little piston. Now I want to launch it, like you should launch your finger right into the subscribe button. But I don't want to just send an arrow a couple steps forward, so I'll build 2 green platforms and raise them up high so that I can fit a mechanism below them that launches an arrow when you pull the lever back. We can use this clear beam piece to hold the arrow and then connect it to an axle that will hold it so when the lever is pulled back and this rubber band pulls the arrow forward, it can complete an arcing motion. Wow, I just explained like an hour of building in 20 seconds. Let's see what I can do up against some mobs. Here's a skeleton. What about a zombie? And let's try a goat. And also a pig. And finally, let's see if Steve can hold up against it. Oh, that had to hurt. Next up, I want to see if I can make a door open when a lever or pressure plate is activated. First, let's build a door. I use some of these plates with holes in them so I have a place to put a beam and can turn the door. In Minecraft, standing on a pressure plate that is in front of a door holds it open, but turning a small downward motion into a full 90-degree rotation would be very hard, so instead I'll use a lever that works the same in the game. I can hook a gear to this door and a gear rack to the beam connected to the lever and a track for it to sit on. Then when the lever is flipped, the door swings open. That's really satisfying to play with. Lego, look at this mechanism. Like, literally, why haven't you hired me yet? Now I want to see if I can make a working minecart with rails. I'll start by stacking a bunch of 1x2 plates. Then I can use these gray pieces on either side to get a design that fits in the constraints of building minifig scale. Then we can add a frame underneath. Oh, I'll need 2 of those. There we go. And then we just need to build a minecart and put Steve in it. Here we go. Perfect. It might have a bit of a deadly ending, but it gets the job done. Now let's build a working Minecraft jukebox. Okay, I have this music disc. Now let's see what it plays. Wow, what a beautiful song. Now that I've built ways to transmit redstone, methods for activating it, and the actual mechanism blocks themselves, I can finally build some redstone machines. But first, let's do a speed round of the blocks I can't give functionality, but would still be cool to build in Lego. Here's a simple way to build a redstone lamp. It uses the bottom part of a swivel Lego piece on all sides to give it the windowed look. What about a daylight detector? In the game it has a 3x3 pattern on the top, but to stay within the 2x2 bricks, I'll just use 4 tan studs to recreate it. And how about we build a dropper, since we already made a dispenser? A dropper has a triangle mouth, so I'll use these pieces, including some of these cheese wedges, to create the look of the mouth. Thanks, Steve. And finally, before we get to the final builds, what about a trap chest? There isn't much different about normal chests from trap chests, but I used a trans red piece under the handle to make it look like the redstone dust in the game. And there we go, that's 4 speed builds of redstone blocks. And now let's get on to the first redstone contraption, a 2x2 piston door. I can use 2 small circuit cube motors and these pieces that can gear the rotation way down and turn it 90 degrees. If I put an arm on it, then I can turn the rotation movement of the motor into back and forth movement in the pistons. Then I hooked it to the axles and tested it out. But I forgot that unless the motor output was free to move up and down, it would take the pistons with it, which is definitely not what I want. So I spent even more time making these rectangular assemblies which can house the rotating end of the mechanism so that it pushes back and forth, not up and down, like the linear actuator I made in this video. Which sorta worked, but the problem is that everything shifts around too much, causing things to get unaligned. I tried lots of different things like this, nope, and this, nope, and this, nope, and nope, nope, nope. Okay, so I finally got it working. I used some of these rail pieces to hold everything in place more accurately, and then I built up the walls at the front without anything actually sitting on top of the sliding part, which I originally tried, but it made it jam up. I also switched to just using one motor because it guarantees they spin at the exact same speed. Okay, now let's test it out. Let's see if Steve approves. And finally, let's move on to making a working flying machine. Working is a loose term. I've never actually built one in Minecraft either, so let's do that too so I know what I'm doing. In Lego, I'll add a row of flat tiles on the surface and then spend way too long making a chain where every 5th link is a wide version. Then I can hook it up to some gears, put a long platform underneath the top chain to support it, and then work on motorizing it. Why does that work so fast? I barely did anything. I wonder how RJM Bricks is doing in the game. Okay, so I think if I place an observer on this piston here and then add 2 slime blocks on the end, that should be 1/2 of the mechanism. But I've never built this before, so I don't really know. Hopefully Google isn't letting me down. Then I can do the same on the other side and just add the final slime blocks, and I think breaking this redstone block will make it work. Okay, awesome. So the machine has a kind of stop-start motion, so I'm hoping that this tread mechanism will suffice. We can hook a Technic brick to this arm, and then when it spins, every time it rotates, it will push one of the tread links forward. But it's way too fast, so I need to gear it down. Okay, now when the motor is on, it pushes each long tread link and makes an intermittent motion. That's much better. Then we can hook this horribly built flying machine on top, and there we go. And there you have it. I just built questionably working Minecraft redstone and Lego. Wow, that's 3 whole years of progress as me as a Lego builder, a Lego content creator, everything. And I think I've progressed a long, long way. But there's only one way to test that, and that's the final video that just came out. I hope you enjoy. This is a Lego minifigure scale Minecraft minecart track, which somehow uses these treads to work. And this is a working Minecraft fishing mechanism that incorporates this giant Lego ring gear in order to function. But I'm not just stopping there, because today we're gonna go all out and build 5 more Minecraft mechanisms, using weird pieces, cool building techniques, and numerous fancy mechanisms, starting by using these bevel gears and bracket to make a floating item in Lego. Okay, I can top it with this green plate that has a hole right where the clear rod is. Use these wedge tiles to fill the gap and put an item on top, like this bundle. Whoa, that actually really looks like an in-game floating item. What other items can we add? Well, here's an egg, and here's a bucket, and here's an iron helmet. We can also add some diamonds, or an emerald. The mechanism is simple enough too. This camshaft lifts the axle up and down while this other axle rotates, transferring the spinning motion to the item. And just like I said I'd use, these bevel gears give us 2 outputs, so I can lift the item up and down and rotate in a circle, getting 2 different functions with just 1 motor. Okay, but what about using this giant ring gear to make a working fishing mechanism? Well, first, I built a platform with some blue plates, leaving a 4x4 hole in the middle, and built it up with a black border and a beach on this side for the minifigure to stand. Tiling this took a very long time. I also left this single block loose, which will be a cool way to make the minifigure attract the fishing pole. This is a round gear rack. I'm gonna hopefully use it for the mechanism. So I built a sort of bearing using these round Technic beams which hold the racks in place with minimal friction. Fishing is definitely a lot simpler in Minecraft. Underneath the lifting block I built a lever, that way I can press it down here and it lifts the minifigure pole here. But I had a better idea while building this. What if you could actually reel in the catch with the real fishing line? So I got some and strung it through the fishing pole. Okay, I'll add a spool and winch mechanism back here. And as for what to catch, well, you'll see. Speaking of seeing, let's see if it works. Needed a little assistance on that one, but we caught a bone. And here's a fish. Oh, and we got a different fish. And finally, we got an enchantment book. On the gear rack, there's 4 platforms that I can set a magnetic item on, and this motor spins a wheel that consistently spins the whole thing. Then when the item comes around and magnets onto the hook, I can turn the crank here and reel in the catch. But next, I want to build a working water bucket clutch. The key here is actually a little spring from a pen, because I built this base up that will have a normal Minecraft stone block quickly swapped to have a water block on top of it. Here's the water block assembly, which we can build into the base above the spring, giving no room for either to go anywhere we don't want them to, only up and down. Then I can build around it, covering it with the end of this tile. And I'll build up a cliff on this side, which can be what the minifigure falls off in the first place, just like this. That block switch mechanism works so perfectly. It honestly does look like a minifigure water bucket clutching, but not enough because I don't like having to have my hand right here guiding the minifig down. So I used a long Lego axle built into a block here as a guide for the minifigure. That way I can attach this plate here and disconnect it, dropping the minifigure off a cliff and making the water bucket clutch even cooler. Okay, that's the first 3 mechanisms done, and we have 4 left, which means I can now build a working Minecraft boat. To make this work, I'm going to be using magnets, but we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. First, I need to build an entire gantry, which allows a certain point on this machine to move in all directions within a specified area. I managed to make a super simple one using these big lead screw pieces that rotate and move a housing piece side to side. Then when you combine 2 different directions, you end up with a working gantry. I've housed the magnet in here, and then I can put this fish tank on top with a bit of water in it and build a Minecraft boat with a second magnet in the bottom. The then I can place it in the tank. There are a few issues to iron out, but now it works. That's such a satisfying build. I really like being able to control it, and for the most part, the magnet is strong enough to guide the boat around. I've built 2 other ways to have small boats drive around this fish tank, and each one has been so different. It's pretty cool what you can do with different pieces. Like these chain links, which I connected these 2 lead screw parts together with, since if they weren't driven at the same time with the same motor, they would have gotten out of sync. Okay, that was cool, but now it's time to move on to the next mechanism. And I'm once again going to be using these tread pieces to make a working Lego minecart. In my Minecraft Redstone video, I made a section of theoretically working minecart using the same chains, but it was running flat and was very visible and looked bad. Plus, it was only like 10 studs long. So for this one, I want to build an entire loop, which I will lay out with these pieces that hold a gear, 1 in each corner, and then quickly build out the walls around it and in the center. The key to making this wall work is obviously the chain, but there's a single specific piece that really comes in clutch, this chain link with a bar sticking out of it, which will allow me to attach the minecart on top, but I also need a way to power it, and it's tricky because these gears aren't really drivable since there's a chain wrapped all around them, but using a gear on the other side would push the chain out of the straight line of travel. But thankfully, using the right Lego map, we can space it just right that the gear meshes with the chain without pushing it in, which I can attach a bevel gear to and then build a hand crank on the outside. Okay, next was the tedious task of covering the top, which I'll mostly skip over, but the key here is using tiles and brackets on the sides to make it look like a minecart rail. Unfortunately, because the tread is sticking the bar up through the middle of the track, I can't really build what the track would look like, but I tried to make a gray rail on each side using these pieces. And it perfectly closes the gap around this little bar that sticks out. Then all I have to do is build a little minecart, stick Steve in it, and put it on the bar, and turn this crank. And wow, that is honestly like 1,000 times better than I did it last time. And there's something cool about being able to hand crank it as it goes along. Okay, for the next mechanism, I'm actually going to be building up here, because I'm making a working Minecraft Elytra. First, I'll build some supports on the wall going outwards, and I can attach this big turntable gear, which really confuses me because I don't seem to have a single gear that meshes with the teeth when attached to this hole. So instead of using that one, I switched to using this much smaller one, which meshes perfectly with this small gear. Then I can attach a motor at the top and run an axle down the center, which I was going to have a gear on, which spun this small gear, which would then run against the turntable, getting both a spinning motion on the axle and also a rotation around the center. But again, no gear would quite work. But I realized I could just attach it to a bar with this piece here, which spins it perfectly. So I added the necessary electronics to the wall, put this gear on the end with a clear bar, which will move the minifigure up and down as the bar rotates, and added Steve to the end of it. And wow, that's honestly kinda lame, to be honest. So thankfully, I built an entirely secret other mechanism using tons of gears, more of these turntables, and roller coaster tracks that endlessly spins this coaster cart around and around in a sort of figure 8. And I can't take credit for this idea, this channel made it a couple of years ago, and I just adapted it. So I can put a long clear bar on it, and our flying minifigure, and wow, that's a whole lot cooler than the other one. But now it's time for our final mechanism, and this time I think I want to go back to my redstone roots. So let me shrink the world size. This idea is also something I tried in this video, the same as the minecart, but honestly it was even worse than the minecart in that video. And there's 2 key pieces that I have now that I didn't back then that are going to make this extra cool. This power function switch and this power function servo motor, which when combined allow me to control exactly a 180-degree turn in the motor, instead of a normal motor that would just spin non-stop. So with these pieces I got to work building up the side of a mountain to put the door in. Then I can flip it around and start working on the mechanism in the back. First, I'll make the 2 sides of the door and connect them to some gear racks on each side. Lucky for me, this Lego servo motor actually has 2 axles that can be attached on either side. So I can put it at the back here and then it will drive axles that will be able to open the doors. Then I can use my trusty bevel gears and build out a section on each side to turn the gear racks, which hopefully when I turn this lever here, it should make the doors open and close the perfect amount. That's like the simplest but most satisfying way I could have possibly done that. I wonder what's inside. Oh, it's that video. You should click on that next, you'll really like it, I promise. Go do it right now. Thanks for watching, this was really fun to make, bye.